Alright guys, I'm gonna do a little video about forced relationships. Now, you probably are tracking by now the fact that Lilia Bernanke tried to force a relationship and even tried to falsify a marriage to try to be entitled to portions of my financial compensation for my security clearance and the damages incurred to me in the process of them investigating me. Now, the very people that investigate me for the security clearance process, throughout the process, are people that are very inclined to attempt to force or falsify a relationship, and even go as far as try attempting to push for a marriage. That way, they can be entitled to even more money. So instead of them just saying, "Your Honor, I was in a relationship with them, and bore some of the uh, I was bearing some of the weight of the troubles that he was going through, and therefore I'm entitled to a portion of the compensation," they can say, "I'm his wife and I want half," right? And so that they would get much more that way. And so Lilia Bernanke was one person that was trying to force that, and she stalked me all throughout the country. We're talking from Papa John's in Eagle, Idaho, to a uh, a sushi place up here in Flagstaff called Hero Sushi, where she was involved working with uh, Navajo National Guardsmen from the Navajo National Guard base, and attempting to force me to be in a relationship with her. And I was retaliated against for not being in a relationship with her. And um, General Tersini even showed up and acted as a customer with her husband and tried to sexually proposition me out of desperation because the relationship with Lilia Bernanke just wasn't working, and they were part of the same military unit, and their little scheme to try to rob me of some money just wasn't working. And you guys have also heard about how Jasmine Barkus, a coworker over at over at what's the place called? Eos Tychazine, would try to falsify a relationship with me as well, while also not texting me back and also not returning phone calls. She tried to falsify that we were somehow involved with each other, while also trying not to be involved with me so that there wasn't any sort of um, traceability to her basically racketeering that she's involved in. Um, she admitted that she's a National Guardsman on patrol and that she wore a disguise at work, and she showed me as much. So she would do weird things. Like, I would go to Walgreens and I would buy some cashews, and I would enjoy eating those because I like to eat nuts. They're a pretty healthy part of a diet, and I would eat those. And the next day, she would be wearing cashew earrings and you know, acting super flirty with me. And it's just like, she knew at that point, like, that was way further, that was way along in our professional relationship. And I had already texted her at some point, like, "Hey, I don't want to have sex with you. I don't want a relationship with you. I just show up to work, right?" Which, the next day she retaliated against me. She was like, "That was super unprofessional. It's like, you're trying to have sex with me. You send me your pornos. You're trying to force a relationship. You're unprofessional. I have the right to text you those kinds of things." And eventually, the same way it happened at Hero Sushi over at US Cuisine, they just kept retaliating against me for not forcefully involving myself with one of their women, and eventually I had to go. Now, another person that has been doing this for a little bit less time than Lilia Bernanke. She showed up after Lilia Bernanke showed up, and this is Saif ul Huq's wife. Now, Saif ul Huq's wife was really, really pissed that Saif ul Huq lost his home in restitution to me, and she really wanted to claw it back. And out of desperation, she tried flirting with me. She tried hitting on me. It didn't work. Eventually, Saif Abdullah was like, "Hey, we're gonna kill you if you don't, pretend to date her." So I had to pretend to date her. I had to pretend to be involved with her, but I didn't really enjoy it. Not the least bit. It was really, really gross, and it's not something that I take pride in, been forced to do. At some points, I had to actually, like before going to bed, where she would anesthetize me and rape me. At some points, I would actually um, just like sit up in bed and not want to go to sleep because I knew that at some point in the night she would show up like the lot lizard that she is, and she would do her thing, whatever it might be. And this is a really gross person. I mean, we're talking about Saif ul Haq here, right? Like we're talking about a 5 foot, 3 inch person with special needs, fetal alcohol syndrome. What kind of woman can he land? Well, a hooker, and Viola ul Haq is a hooker, and she gets paid for her sexual favors. She's a really gross person. She has a sex addiction because all of Saif ul Haq's friends use her just for sex, the same way everybody uses his mother for sex. The former alcoholic that caused her son to have fetal alcohol syndrome. And so Viola would, come by, and I had no choice in the matter. Even if I locked the doors, those guys that work with the Navy and that work with the Air Force as covert ops, they would break in, right? They would use their car break-in tools, whatever. There's no way around it. I mean, they would have hours of me sleeping to find a way to break in, and they would do so. And they would, film me cuddling with a woman. They would do all sorts of things like that. And this is a trend, and it would keep going on, and it happens to this day. They show up to my dorm, they put me under, and then they and they grab some footage of them crawling in my arms and cuddling with me to try to falsify that, oh, see, he loves me. And it's like I'm literally gassed to stupidity. Like I'm put under anesthesia to the point where I'm stupid, and I love cuddling. And so like you can have a dog crawl under my arms and I'd cuddle it. I'd enjoy it, right? And if you have me gassed out like they had me gassed out, a pig or a lot lizard like Viola ul Haq could crawl up in my arms. Saif ul Haq's wife, the hooker, she could crawl up in my arms and I would cuddle her because, like, that's just a very comforting feeling. Um, and To this day, she's been threatening me with lawsuits, and she's saying we were in a relationship, and whether you like it or not. And she'll force herself to play video games with me by hacking into the video game and putting herself in the same game server as me. I don't have any friends added in that video game, but she'll force herself to be on my team and be like, "See, I'm playing with you. Aren't I so cool?" And to be honest, like she has the potential to be a really cool person, but she's just really involved in this security clearance compensation racketeering, and so many people are on the take, involving our vice president, and so it's like there's not a whole lot of redeemable qualities about her that would make me actually date her, like in real life, in a world where I have choices about who to date and who not to date. And it's disgusting. I mean, it's basically a forced thing. I mean, and everybody in her little intelligence community, everybody in her close knit group has tried the same thing. We're talking about Sayef Abdullah's wife. She's a little hoe, and she tried crawling up in my arms. She came to Hero Sushi with her kids to try to proposition me and show me who she was. And none of it was enjoyable, and none of it is enjoyable. And I'm just not like such a sexually deviant person where like I crave to sleep with people's wives, right? But these individuals themselves force themselves into my life and to try to falsify a relationship. Saif Abdullah was telling me how he's going to divorce his wife and pass her assets, and so I wouldn't have any recourse. And it's like, dude, judges aren't stupid. I'm just gonna put it all out there and let people make of it what they will. But me myself, I'm able to sleep at night because I made of it what I will, right? Sure, I had a long time crush on Gabby. Sure, I think about her often, and she has a very dreamy, personality and look to her. But I just don't know her these days, and so I just won't throw myself at somebody and just suddenly involve myself in a relationship. And as it turns out, the reason she resurfaced in my life is because Viola ul Haq is trying to get recourse and still trying to claw back the reparations and restitution that her and her husband had to pay. Um, she's really sad that she lost her home in that neighborhood because all of her childhood friends who also work with her in this and are a part of the same racketeering scheme, we're talking all the homes in that neighborhood that were built for her little community of friends, they're all involved in this same scheme, and she's trying to claw back the house because she's really sad she lost her house living next to all her friends. And one of the ways I know that all of the houses in that neighborhood are her friends is because when I first visited Saif ul Haq, before I knew he was a criminal, when he would go by the pseudonym Safir Haq, um, I drove into that neighborhood. The gate wasn't opening all the way, so I had to go knock on the door. I knocked on the door. Who answered? None other than Viola ul Haq, his wife, right? And so it was very clear to me that they were kind of observing me, and they were using all the houses in the neighborhood to kind of go about that. That was very clear to me a long time ago, and um, suddenly this person that is now suddenly in love with me, and we supposedly, according to her, a lot lizard that literally lives off of a straight semen diet and has a sex addiction issue. According to her, we were super lovey-dovey and everything was kosher, and she deserves a portion of my compensation because she was involved in a relationship with me. The truth is much different. The truth is she would fly her father's metaphorical F-16 or whatever to use some sort of cyber powers to always try to involve herself in my life, no matter how I browsed the web or where I was. And if it was somebody else, it would be pretty fun, but it was my rapist, and so it was really icky. And so, since, just like Lilia Bernanke, since she thinks she's somehow secretly my lover, and I really want to be with her, I really need to make it clear, and I need it to be on the record, once again, I don't like her. I think she's disgusting. I think she deserves somebody like Saif ul Haq, and they should have a long and wonderful life together because they deserve each other. And I don't want anything to do with her. I don't want to date